Hello, everyone. Yeah, we're live. Good. So good to be here. I hope that everybody can see me okay and can hear me okay. You can drop a line in the chat if not. My name is Elinor, and I'm happy to be here. Before I share my slides and start actually talking about what I'm here to talk about, there's a little poll that I created, so I'm going to publish it now for you in the chat, and I would love for you to answer it so that by the time we get to it, I'll have your answers as well. So it should be live. Let me know, please, in the chat if you can see it. I know I can see it. So today we're going to be talking about startup marketing and why it's not enough to have a great or an innovative idea. And I'm actually happy that I am speaking now after Donnie and after Team. If you've heard them, then you will understand why. Regardless of the fact that they set a very high bar, which I hope I can live up to. They have said some great things that I will... okay, you see only me. Somebody sees only me, so let's... Do you see my slides now? I'm not sure that my slides are showing. Oh, great. So back to business. So I'm going to be talking, as I said, about startup marketing and why it's not enough to have a great or innovative idea. The thing is that as a marketing person, and I will tell you about myself in a moment, it's not just about startups, but in my career, I have been working a lot with startups. And what I'm going to talk about is something that we see mostly with young ventures. And I hope, well, you'll understand why. We're going to look at some case studies as well. So just to quickly go over, what we're going to talk about is the main question of, that I hope you will come out with from this talk is, when is the right time to start marketing, or at least to start thinking about your marketing? Now, assuming that most, if not all of you are marketing people, you will probably all answer exactly the same thing. So we'll get to that. But this is a question. It's not trivial. People don't know that. And also, can there be too much marketing or too little marketing? Are there different layers to marketing? So what the hell, pardon my French, are we doing when we start a new business? When do we start marketing? Do we first focus on product or do we first focus on marketing? This is the main question that I will try to answer. And I will also be doing that through looking at case studies. But before that, a little bit about me and why I'm here today. So as I said, my name is Elinor. I'm originally from Israel. Born and raised, and a little over 2 years ago, I moved to Italy. So I'm speaking to you right now from North Italy. And over my career, which has been actually over 20 years now, I have worked mainly, but not only, with startups, with more than 100 startups. I have been mentoring startups. I have been consulting for startups. And I've done this in multiple industries. So I have seen and heard and talked to a lot of founders and tried to help them with their challenges, specifically with marketing. So one of the things that I have seen happen like numerous times, especially with startups, this is why we talk about startups today, again, as an example, but this is why we talk about it, is that, you wake up one day, as an entrepreneur, you have a great idea, an awesome idea. You may not even have competitors. And one of the case studies that I will tell you about is actually like that. Yes, it can happen. Sometimes there are no competitors in the market. So your idea is the best. It's awesome. It's innovative. And you think that, that's enough. I have to start working on it. Once I have the product in my hand, once I have the service ready, once I have the app designed or developed or whatever that idea, that awesome idea is, it will market itself. Well, not so much. So this is why I'm asking when the right time is to start marketing. And I am going to try to look at your, can you see the poll? I'm sorry, but the poll is published and yeah, show results. Yes, you can. Great. So when is the right time to start thinking about your marketing? And do you need that product first, or at least a proof of concept or a minimum viable product, an MVP? Is there such thing as too much marketing, and is marketing a standard paradigm? Again, most of you, and I'm seeing this now on this poll that I just published, most of you are answering that the best time to start marketing is as soon as you have an idea. But some of you said once you have an MVP or proof of concept. I am guessing that these people are not marketing people. Are you founders maybe, or CEOs of your own companies? Are you the CTO maybe, the Chief Technology Officer? The reason I'm asking that is because I ran a similar poll before this talk and to prepare for this talk. And I ran it in two places. I ran it on my LinkedIn profile, where most of my connections are marketing people, and I ran it on Twitter, where most of my connections are actually entrepreneurs. And these are the results that I have gotten from this survey. So yes, most people say, idea stage. As soon as I have the idea, I have to start thinking about my marketing, which is great. It's crazy. This is what we want to be, where we want to be. But look at how many people said after I secure funding, or when I already have a fully working commercialized product, or when I have an MVP or a POC. So a proof of concept, for those of you who don't know that. This, for me, as a marketing person, is worrying, but this reflects what I have been seeing in my career. And when I speak to entrepreneurs, this is what I'm seeing. I first have to have a proof of concept. I first have to have some type of product, maybe not the full commercial one, because if I go to investors and I don't have anything to show for, they're not going to give me money. That may be true. That may be true, but not always. So do you really need that product first? I would say that depends. That depends on the product. It depends on the industry. It depends on your understanding of the market. But you must always think about your marketing, plan for your marketing before you start anything else, before you even write your first line of code, or before you even look for the first producer or strategic partner, strategic production partner to create that proof of concept or that MVP. And a speaker before me, I don't know if you've all been at or attended the talks before me, Donnie, said that being the CEO of a startup is no longer chief executive officer. He said chief executive director. And he was talking about a movie director. So he compared being a CEO of a startup to being a director of a movie. And I loved that comparison. I really did. So thank you, Donnie. If you are watching this, thank you so much for doing part of my work for me. Because when you think about a movie, what is the first thing that a movie needs? Before the director can even start directing, and you can drop your answers in the chat. What basically, when we go to a movie, what's the first thing a movie has? I'm really asking you. I'm hoping that you would give me some answers. Drop it in the chat. Drop it in the comments. A movie first needs a script, right? A movie you cannot write a story without having first the idea. You cannot direct a movie without first having a script. So a storyboard, yes, idea, script, great, thank you. So much in the same way, when you start a business, and especially if you found a startup, if you are a startup founder, you first need a strategy. You will never go hiking or into a jungle with just a compass. You will take a map, you will have a vision, you will know where you're going, you will have a general direction. Unfortunately, most of the startup founders that I have been talking to over the past 10, 15 years don't understand that. They think that once they have an idea, and they're in love usually with their idea, so this is, one of the main key takeaways is never fall in love with your own idea. They think that if they have a great idea, that's enough. everything, the story will write itself. It's not going to write itself. So if you remember, the next question that I was going to ask is there such thing as too much marketing or too little marketing? Can you do it too soon or too late? The answer is, of course, yes. And again, if there are marketing people in the audience, this should not be news to you. I hope that you can see the slide well, because it's really kind of tiny. Even I need to do that to read. But if you do your marketing, if you start marketing too early, you basically risk tipping off your competitors. You risk, not being ready. So people may actually be interested in that product or service that you are trying to create, but you don't have it yet. So marketing can be done too early. Popcorn is great. Yeah, that's true. Salted, please. No caramel for me. You can also market too late. So if you wait too long, once you already have a working product, you may have missed a train. You can also market too much or too little. You can market, if you do too much marketing before you have the product ready, or if you do too much marketing even after you have the product ready, you risk too much teasing if you're not yet ready to provide your product. And I'm sorry, by the way, if it's kind of weird. I'm speaking to my computer, and I'm leaning forward to actually look at my own slides. That's the benefits, or not benefits, actually, the disadvantage of age. Sorry. So you can market too early, too late, too little, too much. How do you make sense of all of this? How do you decide when is the right time to market for you? So first thing we need to understand is that marketing is not always the same. I mean, it is, but it's not. There are different layers of marketing. It's not a single paradigm. Most people, when I talk about it, when I ask people, what's marketing to you, they will answer the same thing. It's like, it's the story telling, it's the or the conversation, as Donnie also mentioned before me, which is very true. They will think of marketing as the same thing. They will connect it to the sales funnel, marketing funnel, brand awareness, interest, all the way to qualified lead, and of course, purchase. But very few consider marketing as a multi-layered approach. So you need to remember that you're marketing from day one, not necessarily to your customers. And this is another myth, or not exactly myth. Again, marketing people know that, but startup founders, CEOs, not so much. And when you think of startups, usually the teams are small. Sometimes they're all technical, so they're all software developers, or they're all engineers. They're not really familiar with marketing. And then they can't even think about the fact that, marketing is not just about your clients. Marketing is not just about your customers, your actual paying customer at the end of that funnel. Marketing is about so much more. You market to your investors. You market to media and press people. You market to your strategic partners. You even market to your competitors on a certain level, because the story that you tell, especially today in this very connected, very digital era where everything's online, everything's transparent, again, both as Donnie and team said before me, everybody sees you. Everybody sees what you do. Everybody sees where you are with your product, unless you go stealth. If you go stealth, that's too little marketing. That's the extreme that we don't want to be in. So there is no one size fits all. You really have to treat this as a prescription, just like in medicine. When you go to the doctor, you get a medicine, but you get the medicine adjusted to you. So you get a specific dose, and you are told you need to take this 3 times a day, in the morning, with food, without food. It's precise and it's tailored to you. So much in the same way, I look at marketing as a prescription, precision marketing to be exact. So you need to decide, to find out, you need to plan out what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, at the right time, in the right amount. It needs to be strategized. Now, here is where if people attended my workshop yesterday about community marketing, strategy is one of the words that I keep repeating. So I keep drilling that strategy first. That's the roadmap. That's the vision. That's that story, that script for the movie that you are going to direct. You have to have your plan before you even start anything else. I just said it before and I will repeat it again. You really need to have a plan. So it needs to be planned for the specific targets, for the specific goals, for the specific milestones on that roadmap. So the first thing you need to do is you need to have a map. You need to have a vision. You need to know where you're going with this. Perhaps in 5 years, perhaps in 3 years, perhaps in 10 years. That would depend entirely on you, on what you're marketing, on your company, on your goals, on your industry. But you have to have this roadmap with milestones set. Then for each of these milestones, you have to think, okay, who am I going to be marketing to at that stage, at that milestone, and how I am going to do that. This is a prescription and you need to plan it and you need to follow it. But you also need to be flexible enough to change it as needed, because real world often throws curveballs at us and it's not always just as we wanted it. It's not always just as we planned. And God knows that last year that we've all been through, still are going through, is a perfect example of that. So the easiest way for me to actually explain what I'm talking about and what I mean is to look at some case studies. So we're going to look at some case studies, and just like with Goldilocks, we're going to have 3 startups, one that did too much, one that did too little, and one that did just right. I'm going for each startup, I'm going to give you the background. I'm not going to share their websites or actual names, because 2 of them don't exist anymore, and the one that does, I'm just unable to share it at this time. But I will tell you the background, the story, the industry, and everything else. So the first one that did too much and too soon. It's a medical device, and their product was in the field of fall prevention. And this is, by the way, the startup that I mentioned before when I said they have no competitors at the market. There still aren't. There are multiple companies, multiple solutions tackling falls in the elderly population. So a lot of silver tech, so to speak, startups and companies, but they are all focusing on alerts. They are focusing on either training and education or sensors and alerts. They are not actually preventing the fall. This startup actually developed a product, an actual fall prevention product. It prevents falls. If you use their product and you're about to fall, you will not fall. You will keep standing. You will stay standing. This doesn't exist. There's no other such thing in the market. Nothing. So in that sense, they thought they're okay. There's no competitor in the market. That's the awesome place to be. That's the best place to be. So what they did was they created a proof of concept. In their case, they had a proof of concept because the team was all engineers. And they actually did that in their own homes, in their own garages. They literally were, working together, creating a proof of concept. And one of the nice things about them is that they were also all post-retirement age. They were well into their 70s when they started. So that's it was a cool startup, and it was a cool startup to work with. But what happened is that once they had that proof of concept, they decided they can start marketing it. And they invested what little money they had, because they did not have any at all, actually, investment at that time. They were working with an incubator, but not really funded. So it was mostly their money. They invested whatever money they had into hiring a marketing agency that did the whole research and created personas and did interviews with potential paying customers. Completely missed the targets, but that's another story for another talk. And then they decided to go and crowdfund to actually fund the production, the commercialization of this product. Now, mind you, they did have a proof of concept, but it wasn't even a prototype. It wasn't even an MVP. It really literally was just a proof of concept. It was working, you could use it, but it looked bad, and it was just, one device that they created, and that was it. Now, another question for you, which I would love to hear from you in the chat, is have any of you has any have any of you had any experience with crowdfunding? Did you run crowdfunding campaigns? Did you ever, participate in one, or well, participate in one probably, but run one of your own? Do you have any experience with crowdfunding campaigns? The reason I'm asking is because crowdfunding campaigns, if you ran them, you know that you have to invest quite a lot of money to raise a lot of money. So I don't remember right now offhand the rule of thumb, but it was around 30% of the sum that you want to raise. At least that you need to put into the actual campaign for the crowdfunding. And to do that, they needed to build a website. They needed to have social media active and done well. They needed to have paid campaigns on active, on social media and on Google. They needed to use email marketing. They basically needed to have a marketing strategy and a marketing campaign and a marketing plan and content, a lot of content, video content and infographics and product brochures with simulations, because there is no product yet. A lot of things, not to mention the perks and the for the crowdfunding. Tons of energy, great. So you invested tons of energy. So these guys, mind you, well into their 70s, invested a lot of money and a lot of that they didn't have, so from their own pocket, and invested a lot of energy, and they failed. And the reason they failed is because what happened was the marketing campaign itself was a huge success. So much so that today, and you can see on the slide that the venture is frozen or dead, they don't exist. There is no product on the market. The startup is closed. There is nothing. But to this day, I am still connected to their email, and I still get 10, 15 emails a day from people asking about the product and where they can buy it. So people think the product actually exists. They market it so well, a product that doesn't exist yet, that basically people think that, yeah, it exists and I can buy it. So where is it? So we have an example here of an amazing product, life-saving, literally, no competitors, with a good market to buy it. But what they did was they wasted all their energy and all their money on marketing too much, too soon. In their case, they should have probably diverted the money to create, at the very least, a minimum viable product, something better, something a little bit more than just a proof of concept, and also divert some money to actually commercialize the product and market in parallel. You did one video. I'm looking at the chat, by the way, and wow, wow. The next startup is exactly the opposite. Too little, too late. And funny or not, these are the group of founders here are actually also well into their 70s, and they are friends of the previous group of founders. And they were in the field of oral hygiene, but their product is a consumer product. So what they did is the exact opposite. They put all the money that they had from their own pocket again, and all the energy and everything they had, they put it into actually creating a product. This product exists. There's stocks of it. There's actually a manufacturer right here in Italy. The startups are Israeli. Both of these startups that I mentioned are Israeli, but the manufacturer is in Italy. And we actually have a product here, but we have no one to sell it to, because there's no money and no energy and no resources left for marketing. So that's the exact opposite. What they did was they focused all their energy and all their resources on actually creating the product and making, a sellable product. And then what happened is when they reached the stage when they actually remember they need to market it, there was no money left. There was no resources left. We did have a website. We did have content. So we did whatever we could with what we had. But by that time, because this industry specifically, it's a very small product. It's a very, I would say, easy to create. And it is a consumer product. It is something you would buy even at the supermarket. So they wanted to create a high quality premium product. They created designs and molds, and they worked with several factories. And what happened was that by the time they reached the marketing stage, there were quite a few knockoffs on the market for a fraction of the price that they would have wanted to sell their product for. And they had no resources left to market it properly. So that venture too is dead. It doesn't exist anymore. I mean, the company maybe is not closed officially, but nobody knows about this product. It's not sold anywhere, and the stocks is just lying around, are just lying around. So these are two examples of the actually, the two extremes: too much, too little, too soon, too late. And these two emphasize the need for a clear strategy, as I said before, and a plan. The third startup is actually an Italian startup. Sorry, it's here. It's an Italian startup. And they are not just alive and active, they make money. And look, the interesting thing is, look at their industry: hospitality, marketplaces, and tourism. And we are in a year of pandemic. And they are alive, they are active, and they are profitable. They actually make money. What happened with these guys is that when they created their product, they had a certain idea, they had a certain vision. Their idea was actually less innovative than the first two that I mentioned, because they had quite a few competitors, but they said, okay, we're going to take something that works and we're going to make it better. What their idea was that they wanted to create a sort of a marketplace for experiences, so that when you go abroad, so when you visit Italy, for example, because they are an Italian startup and that's the market that they started with. So when people come to Italy from around the world, they can either, once they're already in Italy or beforehand, like when you go on Airbnb, you can actually browse for experiences, and you can book in advance cooking classes, or winery tours, or one-on-one, even private lessons in cooking, or private tours with locals. So the whole point was to connect the local food and dining and wining industry to tourists. Not innovative, as I said. There are multiple solutions like this, but they wanted to do it a little bit different. They had an idea of how to do it a little bit different, and they went on their merry way. What they did was they planned everything in advance, just like I said. When I first met them, they showed me a slide deck, and on that slide deck was a slide of their roadmap and milestones. And everything was planned carefully with marketing in mind, which is one of the first, if not the only, examples I've seen with a startup. The difference being that they had a marketing person on their founding team. What they did was they decided, okay, milestone number one, we're going to develop the platform. And milestone number two, we're going to start onboarding these people. Milestone number three, onboarding those people. So what they had was they had planned in advance, not just what they're going to do, but who they're going to use, who they're going to market that at that milestone to. And it worked for them so well that their product was quite well established. They started gaining a lot of traction. They started gaining a lot of traffic. They started gaining a lot of leads and a lot of sales and media coverage. And then pandemic, tourism, especially in Italy, and I'm speaking to you now from the north of Italy, from Lombardy. So yeah, everything stopped. Everything was in a complete halt. And when I spoke to the founder last, I was actually worried because, I mean, I was asking her, what are you going to do? It's a woman. What are you going to do? And she said, well, I'm ready for that. I'm equipped for that. I'm going to just pivot and market to something, I'm going to market something else. I'm going to market in another way. So what they did was they took their, and again, this is similar to one of the examples Donnie gave just before for the yoga teacher. They took whatever they could. Not everything can be done online, but whatever they could, they took online. They started offering a little bit different experiences using digital and online tools. But they went on marketing. And the reason that they succeeded in doing that is because they did not burn through their resources. They did not burn through their energy. They did not burn through their money on marketing too much, but they also didn't wait. So they already had a platform. They already had client base. They already had something working. So they didn't wait too long. They marketed in the right time and in the right amount. They created their product in parallel. They actually reached the point of the pandemic very well ready for whatever hit. So they are still alive, they are still active, they are still open, they are working, and they are making money. And that for me is a great example of a just right startup. Now, obviously, these three examples, I mean, you can probably tear them apart and find a gazillion other parameters or elements that played for or against these startups. And it could be the market, and it could be the founding team. Like I said, the two first ones are well into their 70s, so it could also be a matter of basically their age. Why am I stopping stream? I'm sorry, but if somebody sees that stopping stream, why?